Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, in Cafeteria B of Westfield High School, 550 Dorian Road, Westfield, New Jersey. Purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business to come properly before the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, November 14th, 2024, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap Into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of the meeting. Patty, we have a roll call, please?
Rob Bonaccio.
Here.
Kent Diamond.
Here.
Brendan Galligan. Charles Gelinas.
Here.
Layla Morelli.
Here.
Sonal Patel.
Here.
Kristen Sonic-Schmeltz. Julie
Here.
Steinberg. Oh, I'm here. I didn't see you
Sitting
there.
on my microphone.
Julie Steinberg. Here. Mary Wickens.
Here.
Mary, would you lead us in the flag salute, please? Before we get started, this is our first meeting since last week when our district got the very tragic and incomprehensible news that one of our seniors, Brandon Genlot, had passed in an accident. Brandon was a respected student, senior, a respected teammate in the volleyball team, someone I didn't have the pleasure of knowing, but by all accounts is someone who knowing was always nothing but a pleasure. I want to have just a brief moment of silence from the board and just wish Brendan's friends and family the comfort and benefit of time. There's obviously a void here with him being gone, but hopefully that void will soon be filled by the warmth of his memory. So a moment of silence, please, if you can. I want to thank you very much. For those, this isn't something that's going to be very easy to get over. Last week, the superintendent sent out an email to the community with different resources that are available for students who may still be struggling with things, for community members. Those resources are still available. Our counseling teams are still available. So if at any point in time, you need them, please feel free to refer to those resources and to utilize our counseling team. And I do want to end with a thank you to those counselors and to our teachers at the high school. When you get news like that, we're very lucky to have a very close-knit community of teachers and counselors here. And when you get news like that, this isn't just some student you didn't know. Our teachers and our counselors mobilized very, very quickly before they had any chance to process what is going on to be there for students at our high school who really didn't know what to do with the news. So I just want to thank them for putting their feelings aside and focusing on the students that they care about the most. It's extremely appreciated, and we're very thankful to have you here for them. There's no good way to transition from that, but we will do what we can. We'll move to some announcements. CJ, I don't know if you have one. Sure.
Congratulations to the cast and crew of our intermediate school productions for their successful performances of James and the Giant Peach at Edison and Little Women, Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy at Roosevelt. This week marks the last of our fall dramas with the production of The Mad Woman of Chaillou at Westfield High School. This performance follows eccentric Countess Aurelia and her quirky friends as they unite to protect their beloved Paris from greedy businessmen seeking to exploit its charm, blending humor and whimsy with poignant themes of resilience and community spirit. Advanced ticket sales only at wpsvpa.booktix.com/department/WHST. I would definitely look at that online before you copy that down. No tickets will be sold at the door. Thank you.
A quick link to the Genesis Parent Portal has been added to the district's mobile app. The mobile app is an easy-to-navigate, customizable tool that provides the latest updates and notifications all in one place. Search the Westfield Public Schools, New Jersey to download for free on the App Store for the iPhone or Google Play for Android devices.
Layla?
13 Westfield High School student athletes signed letters of intent with colleges and universities, signifying recognition of the seniors' accomplishments both academically and athletically. The following student athletes will continue to compete at the college level. For girls lacrosse, we have Emma Blake at Denison University, Madeline Cohen at Muhlenberg College, and Erin Hazard at Trinity College. For boys lacrosse, we have Colin Coyle, University of Massachusetts, Garrett Ferguson, Washington and Lee University, Luke Gurney, Oberlin College, forgive me, Luke, I maybe said that wrong, William Gurney, great, at Trinity College. So we have Luke Gurney at Oberlin and William Gurney at Trinity, Christian Guilford at Sacred Heart University, and Drew Pavlik at Muhlenberg College. For girls soccer, we have Brooke Morrison, Gettysburg College, Olivia Thornton, Gordon College, and Audra Toth, Bucknell University. For boys swimming, we have Owen Waybell, Duke. It says Waybell here, so I apologize. Waybell at Duke University. Congratulations and well deserved.
Mary?
In November, we celebrate the rich traditions and histories of Indigenous communities in recognition of Native American Heritage Month. On November 11th, we paid tribute to the courageous individuals who have served in our armed forces, expressing our deep gratitude for their sacrifices. And on October 31st, we extended heartfelt wishes to all those who observe Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights. As a district and board, we remain committed to honoring and raising awareness of the diverse history and traditions that make up our vibrant school community.
The Westfield Public Schools and the Town of Westfield are recipients of the 2024 Green Team Collaboration Award from the Sustainable Jersey for Schools program. This award recognizes their joint efforts in creating and promoting sustainable practices in our schools and the community. Visit the news section of the district and school websites to read the full story. And the Westfield High School Marching Band wrapped up its 2024 season with impressive performances. The Marching Blue Devils placed first in their division at the Scotch Plains and Piscataway competitions while being named grand champion for the highest score among all competing bands. While in East Brunswick, they placed second in their division and second overall. The marching band finished the season performing in the New Jersey Marching Band Directors Association State Championships, where they placed third in Class AAAA, and received the fourth highest score of the over 30 high school bands in attendance. Congratulations to the nearly 120 members of the Marching Blue Devils and to band directors Chris Vitale and Gabe Bates. Thank you.
There's still time to provide your feedback about our school's counseling program. Please see last Friday's e-newsletter from your principal to participate in a quick survey to help the counseling department better understand how to improve the support services available at your school. Your feedback will help to create a more supportive environment where students feel comfortable addressing personal and academic concerns. The survey will ask about the types of issues addressed, how satisfied you are with the current services, and what improvements you'd like to see. Your input is invaluable and will help shape the resources available to you. Please submit your survey responses no later than Friday, November 22nd. Thank you.
All Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th for the Thanksgiving recess. Additionally, all students will have an early dismissal on Wednesday, November 27th.
That was the good one. The next regular public meeting of the Board of Education will be on Tuesday, December 17th in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School, beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting will be live streamed via the district YouTube channel, which viewers can access on the board tab on the district website. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, December 13th. All right, we'll move right to the report by district administration. Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll keep my remarks tonight brief to ensure we have ample time for Dr. Bolton's presentation on the upcoming changes to the master schedule at both the intermediate and high schools for next year. Since the adoption of our strategic plan, we've made considerable progress towards our district goals, and this progress is reflected not only in board meeting updates and our principal and district newsletters, but also through direct community engagement, such as the recent morning coffees at each elementary school in Lincoln. In the first year of our plan, we laid the groundwork by focusing on research, exploration, and planning across our 5 strategic plan goals. And now in this second year, we're beginning to see those efforts take shape in ways that directly impact our schools. New curriculum development, additional staffing, the introduction of our observance and heritage initiatives, and our facilities referendum, just to name a few. Each of these efforts aligns directly with our roadmap, setting a clear path, advancing us closer to our district's future. I'd like to thank the board and the community for supporting this vital work, and I'm incredibly proud of our team's dedication in creating meaningful opportunity that will benefit our students for generations to come. Before I close, I want to provide a brief update on the referendum. Last month, we submitted all project applications to the New Jersey Department of Education, the County Superintendent, and the Westfield Planning Board. We are currently awaiting the Department of Education's review and confirmation of approvals and the final decision of debt service aid by January. In December, we'll present to the Westfield Planning Board, and over the coming weeks and months ahead, we'll meet with our Community Communications Advisory Committee and various community groups to discuss the proposals in more detail. Tomorrow, we'll present to the Westfield Special Education Committee as part of our ongoing outreach. As we wrap up 2024, I'm looking forward to the exciting possibilities in store for the Westfield community in 2025. But until then, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a restful holiday season with family and friends. At this time, I now would like to invite Dr. Bolton to the podium for a presentation on the intermediate and high school's master schedule update.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Dr. Gonzalez and to the board for allowing me an opportunity to speak this evening about some work that's been going on for the better part of a year. Actually, it's been going on for way more than that. So when I arrived in the Westfield Public Schools in the 2006-2007 school year as the assistant principal at Roosevelt School, one of the first things I was confronted with was the challenge to examine the potential for block scheduling at the intermediate schools. So this has been an ongoing discussion for a very long time, at least in the 17, 18 years that I've been in the district. It goes beyond me to Mrs. Esfendis, who's held committees on this topic, and Dr. Nelson, who has developed committees on the topic as well. So I would say in our current form, in earnest, this presentation is just going to give an overview of not only the planning and work that's gone into the block schedule or the program changes to our schedules at the intermediate schools, but also into the rationale and purpose behind those schedules. So in the current iteration, this planning began as part of our strategic planning process, where multiple stakeholders shared thoughts and ideas about having this be a priority for the district to examine the way that students and teachers use time in the school day. And in my recollection, this is the first time that this was publicly stated as a desired goal within a strategic plan in our district. So as a result of those conversations in strategic planning, this became an objective within goal number 1 of the strategic plan: examine the school structures that ensure best practices for teaching and learning to promote innovative and collaborative uses of time. So once that goal was established, we really got to work in gathering feedback and thoughts from people who are currently doing this work in other school districts, from groups of committees of teachers and administrators, and from students and community members. So some of the things we did, we formed a high school committee on scheduling in January of last year that met multiple times throughout the year. That committee was composed of administrators and teachers. We also formed an intermediate school committee to do the same work, identify values, priorities, goals as we examine the structures of our school schedule at the intermediate school as well. Then we also surveyed surrounding districts. We received responses from about 21 surrounding school districts just to see how they were using time, and many of them operate in a block schedule with a block lunch. So that was helpful to learn from their experiences and to just gather data around the number of students, the size of the schools, and how they function. So learning from our neighbors was extremely helpful. We also had school administrators from neighboring districts that we consulted and spent a good amount of time with the people who've done this work prior to us in meetings and then visits to other school districts to see the schedules in action. We also shared a thought exchange with our students at the secondary schools and a thought exchange with our families at the secondary schools. So that was, and I'll provide a little bit more detail into the thought exchange results as we go through the presentation. So as we gathered this feedback from these various committees and from other school districts, we started to gather some priorities as well. And we thought that some of the priorities in examining the way in which we use time in our school should really focus on learning and teaching and how that process works, and so that we can provide ourselves and our students with deeper and more engaging experiences in the classroom. Some of the things we heard from teachers were things like, I don't know that we need to double the amount of time we have, but it would be nice to have some more time to engage our students in hands-on experiences, deeper discussions, and provide small group experiences, which we don't always have time to do in the current structure. We also wanted to look at another priority within our strategic plan, which is student stress and teacher stress. So that became an objective of this task in looking at how we use time. Our current schedules, and I'll go through those, but students experience every course that they have in a given day. That means every course, the same amount of workload, in the same time period, in the same day. So we looked at different schedules that provide somewhat of a break from having the entire course load in a given day. We also set a priority on teacher collaboration. That was a piece of feedback we heard from our teachers and we know this from the research, that providing time for teachers to collaborate, providing time for them to engage in professional planning results in higher quality instruction. So we wanted to find a scheduling opportunity that gave enhanced time for teacher collaboration. And we also wanted to look at flexible uses of time and increased retention and focus. So flexible uses of time being, how can we use the school day as an opportunity to provide students with extra help, support, clubs, activities? So what we heard about our current schedule is some of the things that I already mentioned. A straight 9-period day forces students to experience every class, every day, at the same time, which can often result in heavy workloads. The current length of class periods restricts teachers from going into the type of depth and instructional practices that they often would like to. We also heard that the shorter periods in our current schedule often results in students that cannot have an opportunity to complete all of the classwork, which, if you're a parent, you recognize oftentimes students who work at a specific pace, that would result in students bringing the classwork home and then the homework home. So they get a double dose. And the stationary nature of our 9-period day can result in situations where students just, at the end of the day, if you have that really challenging class and you are just spent in your 9th period, that's the class you're going to have every day during 9th period throughout the school year. Same thing goes for that class after lunch, where maybe you're not as focused, or that class in the beginning of the day where you're not really woken up. So we looked at ways to provide variability in the schedule at both the secondaries, at the high school and the intermediate schools, provide some variability with some rotations of classes throughout the day, so class periods meet at different times throughout the day. The current schedule also restricts students from gaining access to extra help during the school day. So that's something that we set as a priority as well, which if we could provide students with, especially at the high school, with an opportunity for study halls or office hours to access teachers. The reality is that our students, as we hear all the time at our board meetings, are highly engaged outside of the school day, whether it's through music and the arts or sports or other extracurriculars like clubs. Our kids have a lot going on as soon as that bell rings. And to only provide students with access to extra help after school can really be cumbersome and restrictive on our students. So the more that we can provide that during the school day, access to teachers for extra help, the better. So the thought exchange that we shared with our students was fantastic. I mean, we had a high number of participants, over 40,000 ratings of thoughts. It was great because it very much represented our students from grades 6 through 12. And in some cases, some students want to express the desire for a later start time, shorter class periods, a much longer lunch, and an earlier end to the day. So they don't want school at all. No school for them. But in reality, there were a lot of really good, engaging thoughts that were provided by our students. And you can see in that word cloud that's up there, sleep became a high priority. And having enough time with friends, having longer lunches, having a later start time, those all became clear thoughts that came through from the thought exchange. We also provided students with opportunities to rank some areas that we ranked as priorities or that we expressed as priorities. And when the students ranked these, they put having a study hall option, and again, this represents students in middle school through high school. Having a study hall option is number one, new elective offerings, time for activities, supporting clubs in the school day, and not having every class meet every day as their top priorities. Our thought exchange for families or our parents was similar. Families engaged in the thought exchange and expressed some different sorts of thoughts, but also expressed a desire for later start times at the high school. They had concerns about lunch duration, overall student stress, and concerns about science labs and AP scores and how that plays out logistically in the new schedule. Families ranked those priorities as number one, new elective offerings, a study hall option for students, longer class periods, and opportunities for clubs and activities and support during the school day as their highest priorities. So again, just a graphic of some of the objectives that came out of all of this work with various groups and the feedback that we received. Really focused on a later start time, professional collaboration, deeper learning experiences, building co-curricular activities into the school day, providing some innovation with our elective offerings, particularly at the middle school, all became scheduling objectives. So as we gathered this feedback, developed objectives, thought about the rationale for a change in these schedules, we started to recognize that a rotating block schedule, as we looked at various types of iterations of schedules that high schools use, a rotating block schedule really did meet a number of these objectives, such as providing us with opportunities for a longer class period of, at the high school specifically, 55 minutes, fewer transitions throughout the day, more choice, flexible schedules, and time for extra support throughout the day. So the current WHS schedule, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and I won't go through all of this, but it really does provide a traditional 9-period day where every class meets at the same time every day. Students generally engage in 7 to 8 classes throughout the day, depending on their course load. It's interesting, and an interesting contradiction is that more than 70% of our students elect for an early start. The interesting thing about the high school schedule is that, and I couldn't find it represented at any other high schools that we surveyed, the high school runs 2 concurrent schedules. They run an early start schedule where students start at 7:30 and some staff start at 7:30, and then they run a late start schedule that begins at 8:17 where students essentially block out period 1. The interesting thing about that is more than 70% of the students opt in for the early start, even though many students are expressing a desire for a later start. And I think that has to do with certain restrictions that are often placed on a schedule when you block out a period. You don't have a lot of other options in your schedule, and that flexibility is limited. We run multiple lunch periods throughout the day, so we start lunch in the current schedule at 10:02 during the fourth period and end lunch at eighth period. The last time we eat lunch is at 1:57. So those are 5 lunch periods throughout the day. 43-minute periods, 5 minutes in between classes, 8 transitions between periods throughout the day. Students don't necessarily have a study hall option right now. They have free periods throughout the day. That presents a concern for us just in terms of like accountability of students, where they are in the building. Are they checking in with someone? Students generally have 1 day a week without a physical education class that results in a free period. Most students. Elective opportunities can be restricted because of a block that's caused by science labs. Structuring science labs becomes a tricky thing in the scheduling process in most buildings, whether you're running a rotating block or any other type of schedule. So in many student schedules, they're blocked out of a period for choosing a different type of course because they have to block 1 day for a science lab. And there's limited opportunities for academic support and limited opportunities for teacher collaboration throughout the school day. In the proposed schedule, we're looking to fix many of those things. We're looking to have a single start time with common start and common end times. We're proposing to push the start time back later. This would be 30 minutes later for more than 70% of the students with a 7:55 a.m. start time and an end time of 2 hours and 49 minutes. We're proposing 55-minute periods. Students would generally take anywhere between 6, 7, or 8 classes. They could register for up to 8 classes. There would be a block lunch for all students. This would provide students with access that they don't currently have, where they could access all of their friends during lunch. Juniors and seniors would still be allowed to go out for lunch if they choose. This would result in less transitions between periods. Students would register potentially for those 8 classes, but only 6 classes would run a day. So morning classes would rotate, and I'll show you an illustration of how this would work. Morning classes would rotate on a 4-day rotation, an A through D day, with 4 classes assigned to the morning, but 3 rotating, and the 4th one plugging in the following day. Same thing in the afternoon, and I'll illustrate that in a second. This schedule would also provide us with office hours for teachers during the lunch block. So students would have time to access teachers during a lunch block. They would also have time to go and potentially visit the fitness center or go to an open gym. So there's a lot of opportunities that we could logistically plan within the structure of this schedule. Science courses would still have lab periods, but we would be looking to link those labs to the phys ed courses. So I'll just give you a little bit of an illustration of what the new high school schedule would look like. Just to show you, on the column on the left is the list of courses that a student might typically register for. You'll see in the current schedule, they're listed as periods on the left. And then as you move further over to the right, you'll see how the blocks are structured, the time in which they run, the 55 minutes, a 4-minute passing time, and a homeroom of 9 minutes, which is what we have currently. And then you see that lunch block of similarly 55 minutes. So as they rotate through, you can see where that introduction to architecture class is in block 1 on A day, it rotates down to block 2 on B day. That morning algebra class, which is period 4, rotates up to block 1 on B day and then rotates through similarly. The biology class on B day during the 3rd block would then rotate out during the C day and then back in at the top of the day in block 1 on the D day. So the classes rotate. So again, 4 classes in the morning, you're experiencing 3 a day. 4 classes in the afternoon, you're experiencing 3 a day. And the common lunch block. So that's a lot to digest. As you're digesting it, I'll talk to you a little bit about the intermediate school schedule. So one of the things that we noticed, we initially set out as a group to do something similar with our intermediate schools. We really did look to see if we could build a rotating block schedule in our intermediate schools, and we worked diligently on on structuring this process. However, what we realized after meeting with a couple of experts and a couple of principals who are already doing this is that intermediate schools are just fundamentally different than high schools, which we knew. We knew that before we entered into this. But what we soon realized in this schedule, when you program this schedule, it's really designed for high schools in that it's mixed age groups, mixed grade level groups of students. In an intermediate school, for electives, let's say, kids are assigned by grade level to their electives. So there are currently 3 electives offered in our 6th grade to students. They have 3 periods of electives. 7th grade has 3 periods electives, and 8th grade has 3 periods electives. So all told, that's 9 periods that need to be plugged into a rotation. When you look at a rotating block, you only have 8 spots to do that. So there would be potentially 1 block where you would have 2 grade levels in an elective period at one time. And while we met with schools, middle schools that are doing this, they are much larger, have much larger facilities, have much larger staffs that can accommodate it, and we just saw the restrictions written all over this. So we pivoted quickly and said, so let's focus on the other objectives. And the other objectives that we really wanted to dive into in the middle school schedule were the variability in the schedule, so providing some level of rotation to these students who have the same class at the same time every day and want some level of variability in their schedule. We also wanted to provide opportunities for study halls. That's something that came through loud and clear from students at the intermediate school, to give them some level of break where they can focus on the development of soft skills and organizational skills and get some work done in the school day. We also wanted to provide more effective opportunities for our interventionists. So we have fantastic interventionists that, thanks to the public support of the budget, we've been able to hire and staff at our 2 intermediate schools. We have interventionists in reading, writing, and math, and oftentimes they are required to pull students from electives that they love in order to provide that intervention service. So that's a tough sell for a student who needs an intervention to come out of something they love doing to go to something that is challenging for them. So and I'll show you in a second how we paired the study halls and the interventions to provide them with that access to students and not have to pull them out of a class. We also really wanted to focus on the electives. So the electives at the intermediate schools haven't changed in a very, very long time. So we thought about some of the current trends and needs that we identified in middle schoolers, and so as we develop these new courses. So new courses that we're proposing and planning right now, one is a 6th grade digital literacy course. That would be an elective course for all 6th graders, and that course would really focus on things that often are implied but never formally taught, and we recognize the need to formally teach these skills, such as kids transition into middle school, most of them get cell phones, spend a lot more time on social media and the internet, and they need explicit instructions in how to do that safely, ethically, carefully. So that whole notion of digital citizenship and digital footprint would be a focus of this marking period class. This would also really dive deeply into teaching students effective and ethical uses of AI technology. And I think that's an important thing that we need to teach students, even in 6th grade. They need to start learning. It's in their face, they're experiencing it, and they need to learn how to use it appropriately. 7th grade students, we're developing a new course for 21st century communication, and the teachers that are writing this course are really excited about it ranging the gamut to podcasting, to voice overlays in videos, to all sorts of ways that we're communicating into the 21st century, and even face-to-face communication, being able to communicate with somebody and look them in the eye and have a good conversation. So some of those fundamental skills. We're also working on right now, a new course called Modern Music. Currently in the 6th and 7th grades, students are given the choice in music to either take band, orchestra, or chorus. If students don't play in the band or the orchestra, they are required to take chorus. And there are tons of students who love chorus. There are also groups of students who don't want to sing and they don't want to perform. So they don't want to perform on stage. They don't enjoy chorus, so we're going to provide them with another option in this modern music course. And the focus of this course will really be on digital production of music, the behind the scenes of music production. So there's a lot of really neat things coming out of the fine arts courses that are being designed. We're also giving our Art 6 and Art 7 courses a makeover. They're going to be more closely aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and have more clearly defined units of study throughout their course. And then we also, that are being implemented this year, we have new computer science and technology education courses that were approved in last spring. So those courses are in their first year of development. So a lot of really exciting things happening with electives at the intermediate schools. So just to show you the current intermediate school schedule, again, is a straight 9-period schedule with 3 lunch periods. We begin, teachers report at 8 o'clock, and entrance bell is at 8:07. Dismissal is at 2:47. The new schedule, again, it doesn't change a good deal in terms of the amount of time dedicated to a course or a class period, but what we have done, what we were able to do is create some of that variability in the schedule. So working with some of our really amazing teachers who are just geniuses at this sort of scheduling, we were able to break the school day for each grade level from those 9 periods into 3 distinct separate periods. So each of those you can see in, for example, when you look at the 6th grade schedule, you'll see an academic, and elective, an academic, a lunch and elective, an academic, and elective. And that pattern follows for each of the 3 grades, which allows us then to rotate those schedules. So on an A day, the 6th grade would have their A day schedule, and then on a B day, the 6th grade could have the 7th grade schedule. The beauty of this, too, is that it's iterative, right? So as we implement this, we can develop, do we want to have an A week, and a B week, and a C week, or do we want to have Monday be an A day, Tuesday be a B day, Wednesday be a C day? So those are good conversations that we're engaging in with administrators and teachers to collect that feedback about what that schedule should look like. So this is the variability that was built into the new intermediate school schedule. So not major structural changes to the intermediate school schedule, but definite changes to the content of the elective courses and the way in which the courses rotate through the day. So our next steps for master schedule is doing what we're doing right now, communicating the schedule. I had an opportunity to spend the entire day at the high school, meeting with high school teachers, and got a lot of really good feedback from high school teachers about their thoughts. High school teachers from the course of today, essentially they shared that they are interested in the rotating block. They see the value in a longer period. They see the value in the rotations. I think high school teachers, as well as some of you, might be concerned about logistics, and that's the next level of getting into the details of the logistics, getting into the traffic patterns, getting into the block lunch, and how we're going to accommodate all students in the school throughout the lunch period. So those logistical things are things that we're still working on, and excited to partner with administrators and teachers to gather their feedback. So that's the first step in this process, is communicate this publicly, gather as much feedback as possible, and then make whatever necessary changes we need to make to these schedules. We need to also provide professional development to our teachers, especially at the high school level, who are going to be changing. And while it may not seem like a huge change to add 12 minutes to a class, it is a big change for them. And all of the research and the references at the back of this presentation, that's really, if you summarize most of the research on any of these schedule changes and you ask that question of, so will this schedule change enhance AP scores, or will it create better learning? The answer is it's what you put into it, right? So if we put time and energy into the professional development of teachers, in working in this new schedule, in maximizing the time that they spend with students, in building learning structures that support students in all sorts of ways in that 55-minute period, then yes, we'll have really great outcomes. And again, at a future board meeting, the next step for the Board of Education would be to approve start and end times. That's part of policy, that you would approve start and end times each school year. And then we also have to do the logistic work of adjusting any documents, for example, like program of studies and things like that, that reference the old schedule. And then finally, we have to do the nuts and bolts, and that's where our scheduling guru, assistant principals at the intermediate schools and the high schools come in and get into Genesis and design the new schedules and plug students into them and run the schedules, and then that's the final part of this process. But again, we're in the information gathering, the communication, gathering feedback stage of this process. So we are, one of the questions that did come up when I met with high school teachers today is part of this, it said on this, the roadmap here, one of the bullets said test run schedule change in start times at the high school. And that's what we mean is we really want to do as much as possible. So for example, like during a half day, next week even, having the start time be similar to a start time at what this new schedule would propose. So to see what the traffic patterns look like when everyone's starting at the same time, evaluate that with our experts, speak to the town and the police force to come together as a community to see the best way to accommodate traffic as we enter into new schedules. So that is the presentation. It's a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, one last thing. I will also say another part of this process is to share more information with parents and families and students. So we're making screencasts of the high school schedule and the intermediate school schedule presentation. So it'll be my voice overlay on this presentation that we're going to be sending out in the next community newsletter so parents can watch it, understand it, and then develop any questions that they want to share with us. We'll also be sharing a form for families and students to ask any questions or offer any suggestions about the new schedule.
So if we have questions, why don't we'll start over here, we'll just kind of work our way around. That's all right. Go ahead, Mary.
I'll use my mic. One part I didn't get, and you probably said it, but the science labs at the high
Yeah.
school, how will they work with the block? Because right now they either miss a lunch or they miss a gym.
So we would align them, so years and years ago, they were aligned to phys ed. So
Okay.
students would be pulled out of a day of phys ed. There's a long and complicated mathematical answer to this question.
Yeah.
And
okay.
there's
Is
the.
it kind of the
or
same,
it's-
basically?
It's similar, except we're going to try to clean it up so that students don't have to block out a full period to
Oh.
engage in one day of a lab.
Okay,
So that when you pull out of phys ed for the lab, then it's just aligning science and phys ed together.
okay, got it, okay. Can I do it? Okay. Then I heard you say that there's still 9 periods?
So there's 8 periods.
8
in the current
periods,
schedule.
okay.
There's no periods.
Right.
There's 8
8
opportunities for
opportunities.
courses to be enrolled in.
But, like, a lot of the kids now will fill up their schedule and not have a lunch because they want to stock
A
up
45
on
credit day.
classes.
Yeah.
Are you going to allow that? Like,
N- I-
because I'm thinking of like social, emotional, like
Yeah,
stress levels.
So
like-
that's absolutely a concern.
Okay.
I'm concerned by students who are taking 9 periods a day.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned by students who don't eat a lunch in a
Yes.
given day.
Yes.
And I understand, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't think it aligns with our goals
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the wellness of our students. So that this schedule does not allow for that.
So you're saying it's not going to be, they have
Correct.
to take a lunch at least?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will also say that that's one of the reasons a lot of, many school districts that run this type of schedule will do lab lunch, where science labs will come out of lunch. We're working diligently, and again, there's a million moving pieces, but we're working diligently to not have that happen, because what it does is deteriorates the sanctity of that lunch period. Because as soon as you have that lab lunch, then kids won't be able to access, well, one, it removes the entire science department from providing any office hours or support during that lunch. It
Right.
also removes kids from the experience of having that block lunch and having lunch with their friends and going and meeting with teachers for support during that time. And it also opens the door for other things to happen during that lunch, because it's just the crack to, well, we do this during lunch, why don't we offer this course during lunch, why don't we offer that course during lunch? And then the next thing you know, you're back to where you started.
Right, yeah, okay, thank you. And then, I think you said you were going to say more about how in the middle school, the study hall
Oh, yeah.
works and
Sure.
the interventionists?
Yes, so
Okay.
study hall would happen twice a week for students. They would be pulled from one day of phys ed and one day of music, and they would go to their study hall, and that would be study hall / intervention period. So that's where the
Oh, okay.
interventionists would access students for
So
intervention.
if they're scheduled to go to an interventionist, they would do that. If
Correct.
not, they would get a study hall.
Correct, and being that it's
Okay.
2 times a week, if they have intervention once a week, then they would have study hall once a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
But again, the priority there was not forcing students to miss
Yep.
their gym or their art class that they love or their music class that they love to go to the intervention program.
Yes.
Which oftentimes puts kids and families in a really tough spot to say no to intervention.
Right. Okay. And then you answered my question about the test run. I was like, what's that? But I get
Yeah,
that.
the test run is not creating a whole new schedule and just testing it out for a day. The test run is
That's what I first
testing the
thought
start
when I read
time
it. I was
to
like,
see what the
"Man,
traffic
he is
patterns look
bold."
like. Yes.
Okay. I conclude.
Thank you. Kent?
Thank you. I just have a few questions, but they're 27 parts each.
That's fine.
I'm putting my finance hat on. You talked about new elective offerings. Is there a need for new resources, new teachers, or how's that looking?
So, no, we're using current staff. So for example, the chorus, creating that chorus class is team taught. So if you offer another course, we're expecting students to sign up for this course. So then what it would do, would split those teachers. So one teacher would teach chorus, the other teacher would teach the modern music class, and then vice versa for other sections.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I know Dr. Gonzalez and Patty and I were committed to in this process was, one, not spending a huge amount of money, but then also making sure that we are not losing any teachers in a new schedule. And sometimes that happens when you build new schedules. There's efficiencies and things, and we all agreed that if we find any efficiencies, we would design new courses and new programs.
Okay. So then that leads to the second one. So overall, and I know Patty's alluded to this, there's no additional cost really overall with moving the block scheduling.
Yeah, the only real cost involved in this is really just teachers that transition between two schools. So we do have teachers that travel between schools, and because of the rotating nature of these schedules, it doesn't always work. So that's where we're going to have to, and Patty and I are already working on that, diving into, it's not many teachers at all.
Right.
It probably is just adding certain numbers of sections of a teacher that travels just to kind of fill in holes in
Right.
different
minimal.
schools. Yeah.
And then lastly, I think I know the answer, but saying you're meeting less classes per week, math is not every day anymore. But the material covered today is still going to be the same material covered now. You're not
Correct.
losing
No.
any.
You're not losing much at all, and if anything, I would argue that the quality of the 55-minute period would enable us to enhance what we're doing. So the idea, and I get that, that's a concern, especially for certain teachers, not seeing students every single day, having that one day that drops out, but I would argue that having that extra time in that period is as equal as or better than seeing students every day.
Okay. Thank you. I'm done.
Kristen?
I have a couple of questions also. How does public speaking work at the middle school in this? Because they're taken out of music
Yeah, so.
also for that?
Right, so the public speaking is one of those classes that we're going to be using public speaking to do the new 7th grade elective.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
Mhm.
Okay. And then humanities, how does that work in the high school? Are they going to get
Yeah,
110
they would still,
minutes?
so those classes would still be double blocks. They
Oh.
would just be blocked back up to each other, and then, again, as they rotate through, one might drop out one day and then pick up the next day.
Got it.
So
Okay.
those idiosyncrasies exist in every part of these secondary schools, where we have programs that need to be accommodated for, we have special education programs, specific programs that need to be accommodated for, and that's why, during the development phase of all of these, the principals were involved, Dr. Weissman was involved. That's why we had an eye on those programs, and can say with confidence that anything that those students are getting now in those programs, they'll still get in a new schedule.
Okay. Fitness center. You mentioned that there might be access to a fitness center for
Mhm.
kids. Do they currently have access to a fitness center during the day?
Not during the school day.
Okay.
So like during a block lunch, if that's somebody's assigned space where they're monitoring the fitness center and students are able to go to office hours for a teacher, and that might be a teacher's office hours, then they can go to an open gym or to the fitness center
Oh,
and
that's
see a
pretty cool.
coach, see a phys ed teacher.
So the gym that they use in phys ed could potentially be open during lunchtime for students
Correct.
to use.
I think
if
there's
it
going to
was
be
banned.
some part of gyms, I do not think the main gym, but some gyms that are used to support lunch, because there's so many students
Oh,
eating at the same
interesting.
time. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
I'll
thanks.
interrupt for one second. I'm meeting with Chartwells to go over that because there'll be a satellite lunch location where they'll move food from here to another area and set up kiosks where they can sell some food there too.
Oh, nice. So
Yeah,
almost like
usually.
this thing in different spots, but a little more elaborate.
Yeah, like, well, it'll be something they
can't remember
move
the name of
along
that.
with them and they put
Gotcha.
everything on and so that all the students wouldn't have to come to here. They could go to another location to buy
Okay.
lunch too.
Okay. Last question. In the referendum, do we have extra space available where we're going to have access to including like student, I'm going to call it a student success center, but when I was here, we called it resource centers, where the teachers are going to be able to provide their office hours or?
So some of the office hours will be built into the lunch. That's part of the lunch block. And then so resource classes, I think they've diminished over the years. Just
Oh, wait, I
because-
didn't mean that. Like
Oh.
you know how there's like the math lab?
Yeah, that
Every
will still
s-
exist.
Every subject had it though.
Right,
Years ago.
I know, and
Are
again,
we-
that's something that we're working to develop in this new schedule. It does provide increased opportunity for courses such as that, like a resource course for different subjects.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
No more questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you again. That was a great presentation, very informative. And the schedules were quite intimidating to look at the, I don't know how you guys do that. Your amazement is shared by me. That's impressive. My one question for you pertains to, you had said that you had done some research with respect to some of our nearby, similar school districts. As part of that, I know there's a desire for the change to this schedule. Were there any, I'm not going to say objective key performance indicators, but there were any performance indicators that you looked at or you got data on with respect to those other schools, just from an objective standard, like grades, performance, whatever?
Yeah, so, no, it's a good question, and I think it's again, it's hard to measure too, because you're talking about different schedules for different size schools. So I don't know that we said, let's look at the top performing 5 schools and try to mimic what they have, because again, there are very much idiosyncrasies in all of these schedules. There are schools who have a similar schedule to what we have now. There are a number of schools that have this rotating drop schedule. There are schools that have a double block schedule with 80-minute periods. So there's lots of different schools, and I wouldn't say that there is one, 90% of schools that have a rotating block perform at the top, like that. That wasn't something that came through. But what we did do is when we surveyed these 21 school districts, we were able to get a sense of the types of schedules they're running. And it was really interesting to us to see how many schools, surrounding school districts, are running a similar type of schedule. I think it was something like 17 out of the 21 schools had a block lunch. So, and a block lunch is daunting for some people. When you look at a block lunch, you say, how the heck are you going to do 1,900 kids at one time? But to know that 17 of the 21 schools that we surveyed are doing it effectively, one, it gives us justification to say, this is doable, and two, it gives us the direction arrow to say, these are schools that we can tap and say, how did you go about doing this? So it was really helpful to survey those schools.
So first, I want to echo my colleagues' praise for so much good work. Such a complex and detailed undertaking that clearly has been well researched. I really share Kent's gratitude for the fact that you not only put this together, but you put it together and made it incredibly cost-effective, and were able to not only keep all the teachers, but also didn't add costs into that. I think that that's...
I wanted to, but Patty wouldn't let me.
I know, but I just want to say that that's an extraordinary accomplishment, and I really think that I just want to say how impressed I am, and I know that there were a lot of factors that went into this, and this is my second time seeing your presentation. It's the second time I've been very impressed with it. So thank you, and thank you to everybody who helped you with it. As I said last time, I just want to reiterate my concern about the transitions. So correct that the transitions at the high school will now decrease in the current plan from 5 minutes to 4 minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So my concern, as I mentioned before, is that becomes a universal design that benefits everybody, and the whole point of this is in many ways to take stress from students, from staff, from everybody, and it takes a universal design component, and it's the one thing that perhaps makes things feel a little more tense, a little more stressful. So, and it doesn't matter whether that's because somebody's able-bodied, because somebody has to stop off at the restroom, because somebody has to start off from the third period science wing and get over to the orchestra pit. It doesn't matter what the situation is. It's just stressful, and I liken it to, when people say, well, it's just 1 minute, well, the math also says that's 20%, and I try to think about what that 1 minute or 20% is for somebody who's commuting and has to get to track 5 with 1 less minute or 20% less time. So that's how I've been trying to think about it when I think of the kids and the teachers. And so my ask is it possible when you're doing these tests, whether it's next week or upcoming, to treat it almost like user acceptance testing and not only include the teachers, but include all the support staff, the guidance team, the child study team, the paras, the nurses, and also the students. And I would nominate James, if he would be willing to possibly participate in this and give feedback, and students of all abilities and all backgrounds, because it's really important that they can tell you guys, in a controlled manner, like what's working, what's not working, what's hard, what's not hard, what would make it easier, because that would give me, as a board member who's going to, support what you're doing no matter what, confidence that you guys have all the information you have. And I just wanted to see whether or not that's something you would be willing to consider.
Yeah, and again, I said we're in the feedback phase of things, so I think that's a good test to run. I ran the test myself from the third floor science wing to the orchestra pit, which are the two farthest points in the building. I made it in 4 minutes. I didn't run. I did get stuck behind a group of people that were not walking very fast, but again, I think it's a point well taken, and it is a change, so we have to examine the impact of that change.
Thank you.
So wait, your
And-
test run was during an actual change time?
Yeah.
Nice job.
You like that?
I like it.
Yeah. How long did you prepare physically for that?
You cannot, you have no control over the pace of the hallway, that's for sure. No control. Of course.
Did you wear a backpack?
No backpack. But I carried my cell phone with me the whole time.
So I just wanted to thank you. I had sent questions to the curriculum committee, and I know that they brought them up with you, but I just wanted to say it out loud for, those joining us from home. I was concerned about specialty programs, for example, like ESS or even Project 79, whose kind of whole essence and reason for success is when they meet, how they meet, the flexibility of even that many of the Project 79 kids eat in Project 79. And so I think that it's important that while we're embracing change, we're also keeping intact the programs that really for these kids, their social emotional learning is so important. So a block lunch might not work for some of those kids, and some kids who are not in those programs. So just that we're flexible and that there are alternatives and that all of the staff from those programs are included.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that, and, you know, I know that the due diligence is done there for sure. I just, you know, they all need the voice. I've done a lot of research on block scheduling also, like when we first started running for the board, and one of the things that always comes up is issues with retention. I don't have a firsthand experience with my kids in block scheduling, or my district even, but some kids really do benefit from like frequent and constant repetition, and the fear is, right, that if it's not that frequent and constant repetition, that they will have a difficult time retaining concepts. I know that you can argue both sides here, so I
Sure.
really do know that, but I was just wondering, and, you know, Dr. Weissman's here also, so if this is something that specifically affects a child with an IEP or a 504, could that be like written in as like part of their programming? Since you're having longer time, like a review period or something to offset if they see that retention is an issue. Is that something that the special ed teachers have brought up? Things like that. I just wanted to look at it from a special education lens as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't commit to saying like what would go in an
No, sure,
individual IEP,
sure.
but I think those are obviously considerations that the entire team would look at.
Right.
And any accommodations that need to be considered in light of a new schedule.
Right.
I just met with the high school's child study team today,
Mm-hmm.
as a matter of fact, and got some really good feedback from them about their perspective on things and what things might need to be changed from their lens. So it was a good meeting.
Okay, great.
So, and it seems like they're open to making any of those changes that are necessary within a new schedule. I would also say, and again, agreed, you could look at it from so many different
Sure.
angles. This notion of cognitive load theory is something that I've been researching a lot about, and how much and what types of information can be shared with students in a given day. And I think this schedule gives us a really good opportunity to provide an appropriate cognitive load for students and not overload them with information. So that's again, another side of,
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that for my fellow board members and Dr. Bolton and Dr. Weissman if they want. No, but because I have a daughter who is a freshman in a block schedule high school. So I have experience with a student, and I've been teaching I'm a case manager for 10 years in a district with block scheduling at the middle school and high school. So if you ever want some feedback on what it's like, especially from the special ed perspective, you and I could talk about that for hours. Matt, I would love a phone call if you have questions,
absolutely.
or if you don't.
Dr. Bolton,
Whenever.
we will provide
Either way.
brunch.
Thanks.
We'll provide brunch.
We missed you, Mary. So I know you had one question to jump in on.
Yeah, there was a question that has been coming up, because typically the swim team, for example, leaves early
Yes.
during their season. So how would that be, or have you looked into how that can be accommodated?
We have.
I already met with the Y and worked that out for next year. So that's already been changed.
Yeah. So the Y is more than actually willing to work with us around changing the times for the practice so that swimmers don't have to leave school early. Yeah.
It won't cut the length of practices either. It
No,
just will
they'll still
start
have
after
full
school.
practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to add, I should have said this in the beginning, but James, anytime we're in the middle of a discussion like this, feel free to jump in, ask questions. I mean, this is certainly something that affects you directly, and I realize by talking directly to you, I'm kind of singling you out and seeing if you have any direct comment, which I don't mean to do, but I'm going to do anyway, but it's just, but if there's any, I mean, just feel free to jump in, especially, I mean, you live this on a regular basis, so if you've got something to add in, just jump in. If not, you can tell me, no, I'm good. However, I just want to make sure you've got the invite.
Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. That may have been braver than actually asking one. Was just telling me that. I have just two quick things. So first, I'm going to focus a little bit on the electives. So on the sixth grade elective, especially for the digital citizenship, I had the opportunity to attend an education law seminar during the school board's retreat, and this came up. This was a huge chunk of time dedicated to everything from cell phone use to AI and all the rest. And the one key fact, nobody could agree on just about anything, because there's about 75 different ways that everybody wants to try to approach this. But the one thing the panel of experts that were up there who were discussing this did agree on is the earlier you start this sort of learning, the better chance you have of reinforcing certain habits. And they said, listen, they said, 30, 40 years ago, people were smoking as if it was nothing else. And then you start learning about the negative health benefits of it. And now, 30, 40 years later, the idea of smoking is anathema to most kids. Are you kidding? Why would we do that? So their main focus was, look, whatever strategy you implement, try to get it as early as possible so that you're developing habits as opposed to anything else. So I think starting it there in sixth grade is a great idea. And that just kind of rolls into my question. I know, these things are in development. Is this the schedule I think we're looking at for a next year implementation? The electives that you're talking about, the intermediate school, are they also on
Correct.
Target for next year, or is
Yes.
that going to be something further down the road?
Yeah, they are already in process. There's, Shauna Longo's meeting with her teachers. She's probably already had 3 sessions with them to start planning this curriculum. So she's already running.
Excellent. So if you have a rising sixth grader, you're going to be able to look at some of this
Correct.
stuff. Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Bolton.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
everybody.
Please, thanks to the whole team for all the work that went into this.
Yeah.
This is a lot over a long period of time. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We will now move then to the student representative report. James.
Good evening, everyone. As Westfield High School ended its first marking period and approaches a long Thanksgiving weekend, the high school has been full of excitement. Last Friday, November 1st, the SGA held our annual homecoming dance. Despite the fire alarm unfortunately being triggered, the dance was very successful and both students and our staff chaperones had a great time. Additionally, we have 3 varsity sports who competed in state-level tournaments. Boys soccer played SPF last Friday and unfortunately lost, ending their season, and girls volleyball also lost to Williamstown last Sunday. However, girls soccer is still going strong. Yesterday, they won the state semifinals 4-0 against Montclair and will play in the state championship this Saturday against Eastern at Franklin High School. Additionally, the school's theater department is wrapping up the rehearsal of their fall play, The Mad Woman of Shalyo, with performances this weekend on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, SGA is having their annual pep rally. This year's pep rally is going to be completely different and hopes to encourage more students and staff to participate and attend. We will have fun grade level and staff challenges, amazing prizes that will be raffled off at pep rally, and so much more. Finally, on a much sadder note, last Monday, senior Brandon Genlaw unfortunately passed away in a car accident. Brandon was a beloved member of the Westfield High School community. He was on the boys varsity volleyball team and a frequent member of the High Honor Roll. Brandon left us way too soon and will be remembered for his vibrant spirit, his kind heart, and his humor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to our board committee reports. We'll start with curriculum instruction and programs. Sunil?
The SIP committee met on Monday, November 11th. The primary focus of the meeting was Dr. Bolton's presentation, which we saw tonight, of the master schedule changes to the middle and high school, and that was presented tonight at the board meeting. So the SIP committee used this opportunity to ask Dr. Bolton several clarifying questions about the master schedule change and offer feedback and suggestions as he works with building and department administrators to continue to refine and implement the new schedule. The committee also reviewed revisions to policy 2270, religion in schools, which is on the agenda for first reading tonight. The changes to policy 2270 reflect the updated guidance provided by the United States Department of Education on constitutionally protected prayer and religious expression in public elementary and secondary schools. The updated guidance replaces the 2020 guidance. The 2023 guidance, which has been incorporated into the updated policy, eliminates the need to revise Policy Guide 2270 every time there is any change in any subsequent guidance released by the Department of Education. In addition to updating the federal guidance for schools on constitutionally protected prayer, the new policy also requires that the Board of Education must annually certify in writing to the New Jersey Department of Education that no board policy prevents or otherwise denies participation in constitutionally protected prayer in public elementary and secondary schools. As detailed in the United States Department of Education's guidance on constitutionally protected prayer and religious expression in public elementary and secondary schools. This certification will be done at the board's annual reorganization meeting. The SIP committee also discussed components of a draft of the district's artificial intelligence plan, which is being developed as a result of the adoption of the district's new AI policy 2365, which was adopted at the October board meeting. The district's AI plan is designed to provide students, teachers, and families clear guidance on the acceptable and ethical use of AI in the Westfield schools. Components of the plan provide clarity on procedures and guidelines for when AI can be used in a school assignment, approval of AI tools, prohibited uses of AI, and consequences for inappropriate use of AI. And finally, the SIP committee reviewed the application for 2 overnight field trips for the Westfield High School Model UN Club and Washington School's annual trip to Fairview Lakes, which can be found in tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Sonal. I guess we'll move to Finance and Facilities Report. Kent?
Thank you. Finance Committee met last Friday where a good time was had by all. Patty shared the 2025-2026 budget calendar, so please check for it in the Finance and Facilities meeting folder for November 15th. And we are still waiting for the state to confirm the election date in April. Next, FKA, our architects, and Patty and Ray will go before the Planning Board on December 2nd for the referendum projects. It's a courtesy review by the Planning Board, so they're up to speed. Roosevelt roofing work for Phase 1 and 2 are underway, currently looking at an estimated substantial completion of Phase 2 by the end of December, weather permitting. Be a nice Christmas present. Jefferson Playground equipment has been installed and is open. Very good. And the Franklin equipment and Pour and Play surfacing are currently being installed. Both projects had fundraising efforts done by the Project Playground Group. And lastly, the Franklin Handicap Accessible Path now has a final quote, and the vendor has been selected to perform the work. That project is being funded in part with a local recreation grant of $63,000, which will help defer the overall cost of $139,000. Our next finance meeting will be December 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Next, we'll do a report by Policies, Personnel, and Governance. Mary?
Okay, that's me. First, I want to thank Kent for all of his humor. Thank you. And second, I want to thank Layla for reading all of these concurrently while I was ill, so thank you so much for that. And I'm going to do the whole thing tonight, just so you know. Okay. We just met for Policy, Personnel, and Governments meeting. We didn't have as much fun as Kent on November 14th. And the committee addressed several topics, beginning with personnel. The meeting started with Dr. Greer providing an update on a time-sensitive need for a substitute teacher hire at one of our elementary schools. The item will appear on tonight's agenda for board approval. As part of this year's policy review, the committee revised bylaw 0169, which was last updated in 2020. This bylaw currently combines guidelines on board members' use of social networks and electronic communications. To make these policies clearer and align with recommended best practices, we decided to separate them. The committee recommends introducing a new bylaw, 0169.02, that focuses solely on board member use of social networks, and then revising bylaw 0169 to cover only email and internet use. Both appear on the agenda for a first reading tonight. We also reviewed a few district-specific policies unique to Westfield to determine whether updates were needed. After some discussion, we recommended repealing bylaw 0174.1, which details the duties of the board attorney, because this content is already addressed in bylaw 0174 and an attorney engagement letter. We also suggest repealing policy 1214 covering conflicts of interest, since similar guidelines are already in place for certificated and support staff under other policies. To further clarify terms used in policies, we recommend adopting bylaw 0000.02. I love that, which defines terms like teaching staff to include all certificated staff members. Additionally, we suggest repealing policy 8221 on emergency closings, since these procedures are managed by administration and available on the district website, and policy 8830 on flag display, as the district follows state and federal standards on this issue. For governance topics, we explored possible tools to provide board members with easier ways to answer questions and navigate key areas, such as school board ethics, HIB, and school funding, using authoritative resources from the New Jersey Department of Education and New Jersey School Boards Association. Lastly, we're continuing to collect feedback from board members about issues in New Jersey public education that may be worth bringing to state legislators. Board members are reminded to complete the legislative issue feedback survey that was recently sent out, as this will help us identify and prioritize the most pressing topics to discuss with our state representatives. The next PPG committee meeting is scheduled for December 5th.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
And just so everyone knows, Mary and Kent will be here all night. Second show starts at 9. We will now move to recognizing the public on agenda action items only. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda action items only. Agenda action items are items the board will actually be voting on. They're identified as numbers 8 through 12 on our agenda. If there is public comment regarding items that the board is not voting on, there's a second session of public comment that'll be held today once the vote is through. So I'd ask to hold any comments until then. As a courtesy, please allow any current students or staff of the Westfield Public Schools to speak first. Board requests that individuals sign in and state their name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable for the record, the specific action items they are commenting on, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president or designee and not to individual members or staff. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. All right. So seeing nothing on agenda action items, we will close that portion of public comment. And we will move to taking action. First is regarding the minutes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 15th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes and executive session minutes. So I have a second. CJ? We can do this by voice vote. All in favor? Right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. Next, moving to the governance items on the board agenda. Sonal?
I'd like to move item A under the governance section of tonight's agenda. Can I have a second? Thank you, Kent. Is that me? Oh, does anybody have any comments?
Ready?
Okay.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Kent Diamonds,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan, Charles Gelinas,
No to number 9 and abstaining from the remainder.
Leila Morelli,
Yes to all except for 7 and 11, which I need to abstain from.
7 and 11. Abstain. Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Julie Steinberg,
No to number 9 and abstaining from the remainder.
and Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Now move to personnel. Mary?
Okay, I'd like to move items A to W under the Personnel section of tonight's agenda. Is there a second? Kent? Any discussion? Okay.
Seeing none?
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan, Charles Jelinas.
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Julie Steinberg,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
That carries. Next to finance and facilities. Kent?
Thank you. I'd like to move items A through 9 on the agenda. Do I have a second? Thank you, Kristen. I'd like to highlight item K, which is the donations. We have a few of them tonight. We're lucky. The first one's from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts in the amount of $750 to fund a master class presented by Tom Hannum for the Westfield High School Marching Band. Secondly, Matthew Brown donated $5,447.41 to purchase auto equipment for the Edison Intermediate School. Next, McKinley PTO donated $2,050 to purchase an Ozobot Evo classroom kit for the makerspace in McKinley's library. Next, the Westfield Youth Soccer Association donated $5,915 for the Elm Street field renovation. Lincoln PTO donated $330 for 2 pole pads for the playground canopy. Franklin PTO donated $292.66 to fund a xylophone for Franklin School's music room. McKinley PTO donated $1,250 to purchase 2 indoor adjustable basketball hoops for use in the McKinley School gym. And the Westfield Boosters Association donated $12,500 to purchase a pole vault pit for track and field. These donations bring our year-to-date total to $63,365.66. Thank you to all these organizations for their generous donations. Any comments or questions?
Seeing none?
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan, Charles Jelinas.
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Julie Steinberg,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Next to policies. I think, Mary, you're taking the whole load on that.
I'm doing everything tonight.
All right, let's
Yep,
go for it.
I'm on fire. Okay, I'd like to move items A to D under the policy section of tonight's agenda. Is there a second? Sonal. Any comments?
Seeing none? Go
Wait,
ahead.
I was just
Layla.
going to say, my comment is you're doing such a good job today.
You know, it makes me want to come back for the next meeting when you say that. Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready.
Rob
Yes.
Bonaccio,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan, Charles Jelinas,
No to A4, religion in schools. Yes to the remainder.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Julie Steinberg,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, and finally, curriculum instruction and programs. Kristen?
I'd like to move items A under the SIP section of tonight's agenda. It outlines 8 field trips, 1 at Tamaquas, 1 at Washington, 1 at Edison, and 5 at the high school. Do I have a second? Second. Julie. And then, any discussion?
Seeing none?
Okay, we can vote.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan, Charles Jelinas.
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Julie Steinberg,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, I'll call the board's attention to the notes for the record. There was no unfinished or new business submitted for the agenda. We'll move next to any liaison reports. Julie's got one.
Okay, so UC ESC met. We are looking for ways to expand our footprint, and at our last meeting, we approved an agreement to enter into a memorandum of understanding with a local real estate firm not to exceed $7.5 million. The property in question is 53 Cardinal Drive, also known as the Lindaberry Building, here in Westfield. This is an exciting opportunity, and if it moves forward, we will see synergies in terms of both administrative space as well as possibilities to enhance the learning environment for hundreds of children across Union County.
Excellent, thank you. Sonal?
I met with the McKinley PTO virtually on November 11th, and they are excited to get working on Project Playground following Jefferson, and which will include resurfacing, new equipment, and adding accessibility. They also are implementing, or getting ready to implement, I'm not sure if they've started it or not yet, after-school classes in STEAM for their students. So this was something they picked up that fell by the wayside during COVID, and that they just picked up. And then lastly, they're looking to put together a multicultural night in January, which I will provide more information for next time.
Anyone else? All right. I attended the high school PTSO's meeting. Most of what James reports on is generally discussed at that meeting. They continue to support the work of the SGA. They also support the work of the counseling office strongly, especially as of late. We had a college fair here at Westfield, the high school. High school PTSO provided, funding for refreshments and some guidance. They're also supporting I forget what they're calling it, so sort of like an alumni returns to school a day. I think it's December 17th. It'll happen during the activities period with a panel of Westfield alumni able to talk to students during the day as opposed to trying to corral everybody back here at night. So PTSO continues to support these events where they can. With that, I will recognize public for the second time. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
I know we don't have a liaison, but I just wanted to also mention that we did have a great college. You reminded me when you said that the Special Education Committee did have a great session last week for college education and post-secondary opportunities for students with special needs. I think it probably went on for about an hour and a half maybe, and the presentation is going to be made available online, and I do have the contact information for the person who was conducting it. I also wanted to thank the guidance department who sent a representative who was extremely helpful during the entire course of the presentation. And I also wanted to mention that tomorrow is the referendum, which Dr. Gonzalez has kindly agreed to provide for the special education PTC, and encourage everyone to attend. And I just wanted to thank you again for doing that for the community.
Perfect. Thank you. Now I think we're good. Now time to recognize public for comments. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public are invited to address the Board of Education on any topic. As a courtesy, allow current students and staff of Westfield Public Schools to speak first. The board requests that individuals sign in and state their name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable for the record, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president or designee, not to individual board members or staff. Board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals while speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, that matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
All right. Hi, good evening. My name is Colette Walsh. I'm a parent, a student at Roosevelt School, and I'm appearing before you because 18 months or so ago, I appeared before you and I described the dreadful experience that my daughter had at the Roosevelt School theater shows. We had no prior theater school experience, and I just knew that it could not have been typical, and for my child or the children at Roosevelt. I come before you tonight to give thanks for everyone here and for everyone who worked hard to make sure that those changes were made in the staffing for the Roosevelt Theater productions. As last year's shows were the start of the new theater, this praise is already overdue. But last week, students at Roosevelt put on a production of Little Women. I come here tonight to publicly acknowledge the teachers at Roosevelt who devoted their efforts, time, expertise, and knowledge to ensure that our kids had a great experience. I thank Ms. Succi, Ms. Uriola, Ms. Michaels, Mr. Losco, and a special thanks to Ms. Fogel and Ms. Burke for their tireless contributions to the theater program. As you know, Ms. Fogel and Ms. Burke came to Roosevelt last year and are true assets not only to the Roosevelt theater community, but as educators. Their dedication to their students is evident. Ms. Fogel chose the Little Women this fall's show, and there are some who might say that this show is beyond the grasp and the talent of middle school students. Yet Ms. Fogel believed that our children could rise to the challenge. And yes, frankly, there were times that the theater experience was difficult and exhausting for the children. They all worked so hard, but they took their roles and responsibilities seriously. The cast and the crew came together beautifully and delivered a wonderful show for the community. During it all, Ms. Burke and Mrs. Fogel ensured that our kids felt supported and gave them the confidence to give it all on stage and off. It is because of teachers like this that our children gain confidence, develop a love of theater and literature, and are inspired to reach their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comment, we will close public comment, and I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Mary, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.